You won't believe what happened on the American savanna. A tiny lion cub was surrounded by a vicious pack of hyenas, seconds away from being torn apart, when a lone ranger did something so insane, so fearless, that even the predators froze. But that was only the beginning. What he discovered next about the cub's missing mother will leave you speechless. This is one of the most explosive, emotional, and unbelievable animal rescues you'll ever witness. The summer heat trembled across the American savanna, bending the tall grass in shimmering waves. Daniel had seen this kind of heat before, dry, relentless, a heat that pressed on the skin like a hand refusing to let go. But he had never seen what he was seeing now, a small lion cub, barely past infancy, stumbling backward in terror while a pack of 6 hyenas tightened their deadly circle around him. The cub's ragged breaths tore in the silence. His golden eyes were wide, unfocused, and glassy with fear. His tiny chest heaved as he let out thin, desperate mewls, calls meant for a mother who was nowhere in sight. Each plea dissolved into the vastness of the prairie, as though swallowed by the sunburnt horizon. The alpha hyena, a broad-shouldered brute with a scar slicing diagonally across his snout, lunged forward first. His jaws snapped inches from the cub's front paw. Dust swirled upward as the cub leaped back, straight into another hyena waiting behind him. That one clamped onto the cub's tail for a brief moment before the cub twisted free, shrieking in terror. Another hyena prowled forward, head low, ready to clamp onto the cub's hind leg in the classic tactic. Cripple the prey, then tear it apart alive. Daniel didn't remember thinking. He remembered reacting. I floored the gas, he would later recall. The Jeep roared through a cluster of dried sagebrush, shrubs snapping beneath the bumper like brittle bones. The sun glared off the hood in blinding flashes as he pushed the vehicle harder, urging it across the uneven ground until the scene burst fully into view. The hyenas, the cub, the swirling dust, and the shadow of death creeping closer. A third hyena was sneaking from behind, its eyes fixed on the cub's hamstring. Not 1 second slower, Daniel muttered. He skidded the Jeep sideways, threw the door open, and raised his rifle in one fluid motion. The shot cracked the air, sharp, violent, the kind of sound that made even the sun seem to flinch. The hyenas halted, but didn't scatter. They shifted, uncertain, tightening half their circle rather than breaking it. Daniel's heart hammered, but he forced his breathing steady. He knew better than to assume hyenas would back down easily. They were calculating, bold, and relentless when they smelled weakness. He grabbed the flare gun. "Back off," he whispered, as though speaking to himself rather than the pack. He fired directly at the scarred alpha's feet. The flare exploded with a red, violent bloom, sparks spitting across the parched earth. The hyenas jerked backward as the red smoke curled upward like a warning from hell itself. This time, they wavered. They growled, snapped, and finally, grudgingly, retreated into the tall amber grass, their mottled hides vanishing like ghosts. Daniel let out a breath he hadn't realized he was holding. The cub stood trembling violently, legs splayed, dusty fur clinging to his small frame. A thin line of blood trickled from the bite on his tail. The wound wasn't deep, but the terror was. Daniel crouched slowly, making himself smaller. He didn't speak at first. There was something sacred about approaching a creature so frightened. When he finally whispered, "You're all right, little guy," the cub tottered toward him.
Don't worry, I'll take care of you.
Something Daniel would never forget.
You're gonna be just
fine. The cub pressed its small head against Daniel's leg with a soft, broken whimper. A plea, a confession of fear, a desperate need for safety. Daniel's throat tightened. Lionesses never abandon their cubs. Something terrible must have happened, and if he left, the hyenas would return within minutes. He reached for his radio. "The base, this is Daniel. I've got a lone lion cub in the south sector. No sign of the pride.
No sign of the
I'm
pride.
going to track the
I'm
mother."
going to track the mother.
He clicked off the radio and began scanning the ground. The signs emerged gradually. A patch of flattened grass, claw marks in the dirt, a deep divot where a lioness might have pivoted sharply. The cub limped after him, stumbling every few steps. Each time he fell behind, he let out a pitiful cry that made Daniel pause and wait. "You don't want to be alone again, do you?" Daniel murmured. Half an hour later, Daniel stopped at the edge of a dry creek bed. On the opposite side, grazing lazily, as though the heat were nothing more than a mild inconvenience, was a massive bison herd, 30, maybe 40 strong. One enormous bull lifted his head, nostrils flaring. His horns curved upward like polished blades. He breathed out a plume of hot air, his gaze fixed on Daniel. Easy, Daniel whispered. The cub pressed against Daniel's leg again, shaking. Bison were unpredictable. More people died from bison than from bears or cougars each year. Daniel knew the rule carved into every ranger's mind. Don't run. Don't stare. Don't move suddenly. He began moving sideways, slow and deliberate. The bull mirrored him, hooves thudding against the dry ground. Another bull joined, forming a living wall of muscle. Heat shimmered between them. Daniel felt sweat drip down his spine. Every instinct screamed at him to hurry, but hurrying meant death. Finally, after nearly 10 agonizing minutes, the bulls lowered their heads and returned to grazing. Daniel exhaled shakily. "We made it, little guy." The cub didn't reply. He simply rested his chin on Daniel's boot, exhausted. They continued following the trail until a cluster of cottonwoods came into view. A low growl rumbled. Somewhere behind the trees, a lioness pried. The cub perked up instantly and bolted forward with a hopeful squeal. But Daniel heard the tone of the growl, sharp, territorial, not welcoming. "No! Wait!" he shouted, sprinting after him. The first lioness stepped into the open. Her back was arched, her fur lifted in a threatening ridge. Two more flanked her, teeth bared, tails lashing. The cub skidded to a stop. "You don't belong here." The message was clear. Daniel snatched the cub just as the lead lioness lunged. Her claws sliced the air where the cub had been seconds sooner. He stumbled backward, heart thundering. This was the wrong pride. As they retreated, something flickered on the ridge. 3 yellow eyes, then 3 more, hyenas, still tailing them. Daniel swallowed. Time was slipping away. They reached the fork in the trail, the place where one path had led to the wrong pride. The second path was faint, barely perceptible, but the tracks were small. One lioness, alone, unusual, troubling. The cub suddenly lifted his nose and sniffed deeply. His ears shot up. He released a sound Daniel had never heard from him before, half cry, half roar, and raced ahead. "Easy! Slow down!" Daniel ran after him. Under the shade of a towering cottonwood lay a lioness, massive, golden coat dulled by dust and pain. She was motionless. The cub's cry was heartbreaking as he nudged her face, pawed at her ear, tugged at her mane. For a terrible moment, Daniel believed she was dead. He knelt, pressing his hand to her neck. Warm, but no pulse. Then, a twitch, a long, shuddering breath. Her eyes opened, cloudy and strained. Daniel scanned her body and froze. A swollen abscess, the size of a melon, bulged from her shoulder. Taut, infected skin stretched to the point of tearing. She couldn't hunt, couldn't walk, couldn't follow her pride, and she had likely collapsed days ago. No wonder she had lost her cub. Daniel lifted his radio. Emergency veterinary response needed immediately. Severe infection, sending coordinates. 30 blistering minutes later, dust whirled on the horizon as the truck arrived. Harris and Maya, 2 of the best wildlife vets in the region, hurried out. "Damn," Harris muttered as he examined the wound. 2 weeks of infection at least. We need her standing. Maya injected a mild sedative beneath the lioness's ear. Minutes passed. The lioness groaned and pushed herself upright on trembling legs. The cub panicked, circling her desperately. Daniel held him close. "She won't feel pain," Maya reassured gently. Harris made the first incision. Pus surged out in thick, foul-smelling waves, spilling across the dry earth. The cub lunged,
Don't worry, I'll
growling
take
at
care of you.
Harris. Daniel pinned him
You're gonna
gently
be just
against
fine.
his chest, whispering soothing words as the cub shook with confusion. For an hour, Harris and Maya worked, draining, disinfecting, removing necrotic tissue, inserting
now.
a drain,
You're being very
injecting
brave.
antibiotics. Finally, Harris straightened. She'll live a few more days
Almost
and she
finished?
wouldn't have. The lioness slowly blinked awake, her vision steadied, her breath smoothed, her muscles relaxed. The cub rushed to her, nuzzling into her neck. She wrapped a huge paw around him, pulling him close. Daniel felt something warm twist inside his chest. For the next 2 weeks, he returned daily. Each time, the cub bounded toward him, tail swishing. The lioness accepted his presence now, her once cloudy eyes now bright, calm, grateful. The wound shrank day by day until only a pink scar remained. A month after the rescue, Daniel approached one final time. The cub ran up and wrapped his small body around Daniel's leg in a clumsy, affectionate hug. The lioness stepped forward too, her low rumble warm and soft. In the distance, shadows moved, her true pride returning. The cub gave Daniel one last look, wrapped his tail around Daniel's boot, then sprinted after his mother. Together, they disappeared into the dancing gold of the summer grass. And Daniel stood alone on the savannah, knowing he had witnessed not just survival, but a reunion as fierce and beautiful as the land itself. If this brave rescue touched your heart, don't forget to like the video. Share it with someone who loves incredible wildlife stories. Your support helps more people discover these powerful moments. And if you believe every animal deserves a second chance, hit subscribe and join our community. Your one click helps keep these stories alive and encourages more people to stand up for animals in need. Stay with us for more real rescues, real courage, and real miracles.